I'm Edd Hendee, and my husband and I own the Taste of Texas restaurant, and we've been open for 38 years. Love our business, love what we do. I have such trust in Ed's ability as a pilot. He's fanatical about being careful, and he goes through these checklists every flight. We've flown for 20 plus years, and he has this list on takeoff and on landing. He goes through every single line of the checklist. He's very, very careful. On the morning of April the 17th, I received a text from Ed that he was taxiing out at the Angelina County Airport, ready to take off. He had landed the night before because of bad weather, and I'm always so grateful that he is a very careful pilot. So he landed the night before, spent the night, got up early, and always sends a text that he's taking off, taxiing out. And so I sent back, safe travels, love you, see you at work.
That morning, I was headed to Lufkin on Highway 59. I was headed northbound from Corrigan. Right there along the DPS way station area, I seen a plane, that was flying low. And I just thought, well, I guess he's just flying right over top of 59,
Caught the red light, so I was the very first one at the red light. And when I took off, I kind of just, for some reason, I looked up and there was clouds. And all of a sudden this plane appears right above my head.
And the closer I got to Dieball and the closer he got to me, I could tell he was getting lower and lower and lower. And to be honest with you, I just kind of panicked. I said, oh my gosh, the only thing I can do is just try to speed up to get underneath this sucker, I said, because if he hits before, he gets by me, he's gonna clip me with his wings. And here we are, getting closer and closer and closer. And the instant that we passed, he hit.
Approximately 7:47 this morning, we received a call that a plane had went down on US 59 about a half a mile of Dieball.
Troopers responded to the scene and found a twin-engine plane in the median.
There were 3 occupants in the plane, that the pilot and 2 passengers.
The pilot was identified as Edd Hendee from Houston. Hendee and 2 others were leaving the Angelina County Airport and headed for Houston when troopers say Hendee made an emergency landing on this median.
Now the pilot and his 2 passengers were transported to a hospital in Lufkin. No word yet on how they're doing.
About 6 or 7 minutes later, my phone rang, and I was just leaving to come to the restaurant. It was before 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was Ed. And I only got 3 words before the phone cut off, and those 3 words were, both engines failed. And then I called a friend who is a pilot, and he answered the phone and said, what happened? And I said, the engines failed. He said, he's down. I was tracking him on FlightAware, and he's down. Psalm 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. And that peace comes from knowing God. And I knew he was okay. No matter what it was, he was on the ground, he was talking. And all I could think was, I've got to get to him.
My name's Edd Hendee, and on April the 17th, 2015, I got to experience 2 things. One was the worst aviation incident you could possibly have in a light twin. I have an airplane that's very similar to the one behind me, but the fact that I'm here today to tell this story is the second thing that happened that day. In Houston, the storms were just raging all over, afternoon thunderstorms. In fact, we were looking at the radar on the way home, and I didn't see any way we could get back into Houston.
Edd Hendee and I have been close personal friends for over 30 years.
Edd and I do business together. We had set the date to go up to negotiate our contract with our supplier, National Beef Company in Kansas City.
About 6 o'clock that evening, we landed in Lufkin, Texas, which is in East Texas, about a 2-hour drive northeast of Houston. And we got out of the airplane, and I asked the guy at the airport there, would you put fuel in the tip tanks of the airplane? We may be here for a couple of hours, and then I want to make sure I got plenty of fuel to get back to Houston in case we got to divert and fly around some storms. So I went inside to check the weather, and the guy looked at the airplane, and I didn't know, but he wasn't trained correctly. And he looked at my piston engine airplane that runs on 100 octane avgas, and he backed up the jet fuel truck and put jet fuel in a piston engine airplane.
Another storm system came through, so we ended up just spending the night in Lufkin.
We got up the next morning with we're going to take off at 7 o'clock that morning. He meticulously, as he always did the protocol.
And I did my full check of the airplane, sumped the tanks, looked at the fuel, everything looked great. Oil levels were right, airplane was good, started the engines, warmed up normally. Got our flight plan and got our permission to take off from Houston Center.
Danny and I were doing a rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to sit in the front with Edd, and I lost on this one, so I got to sit in the back of the plane.
And as we did the run-up, everything was normal. Pulled out on the runway, about 600 feet in the air. I had a vibration in the airplane that was very unusual.
Just a couple of things just felt different.
The left engine had shuddered just a little bit, and Edd had immediately picked up on it.
Never had that before. And as we're climbing up through this cloud layer now, we're in the soup, so to speak. We can't see anything outside. The windows are just whited out.
We passed through the clouds and just busted through the top of the clouds. It just kind of it felt like the engine was missing.
The airplane performance is not normal. We're slower than we should have been and not climbing with much power because the engines were basically running on a mixture of jet fuel and avgas, and they're getting about half the power that they should have.
There's a difference in weight in that avgas and jet fuel. And then when you factor in what's already in the injection system, there was enough fuel for us to get up into that plane.
Still, we're above the clouds at this point, and I can't see the ground.
Noticed that, looking out from my seat, looking out the window, the left propeller had stopped.
When the left engine quit first, I declared an emergency. Thought, well, okay, that's been the problem. Now we'll fly on the good engine on the right side. About 20 seconds later, the right engine starts to malfunction even more so.
And then shortly after that, 15, 20 seconds, the right motor went out as well.
So at this point, I'm looking at the left prop is stopped and the right prop is stopped. And that's something in aviation you just don't see on a twin-engine airplane. All the training we do is how to fly on one engine. There's no training for how to fly on no engines. And so when the engines quit, the only thing I thought of was what's next.
We were going to descend and we were going to come down fast. With the cloud ceiling being below us, we had no idea where we were going to come out.
And all I could do is, I've got to keep the airplane flying, so to speak, through the air. Well, I've got no thrust, so all I can do is tip the nose down.
As you lose airspeed, the natural inclination is to pull the nose up. And once you pull the nose up, you have 3.5 tons of plane that's going to drop straight down.
And by tipping the nose down, I'll keep enough air flowing over the wings so we're still flying and I can still control the airplane. I can't go very far, but I can at least, we're not going to fall out of the sky. So as we came down through the cloud layer, I said, we're going to crash. We're going to have to pick a place when we get down below this cloud layer that we can set this airplane down. A break in the trees, a road, a meadow, anything you see, let me know.
We're estimating at that time it took us probably right at 25 seconds to hit the ground. From when we could see, so we didn't have a whole lot of reaction time.
As we got down below the cloud layer, he looked up and saw the highway first and said, there's a highway in front of us.
God had us within steering distance of 59.
And I looked over the nose of the plane, and sure enough, in that kind of misty light in the early morning, I could see this divided highway, and we were tracking right towards it. Well, it's 7:45 in the morning at this time, and it's rush hour. And this is a weekday, a Thursday. And so people are coming and going. This is the main road between Lufkin and Houston, Texas. So there's plenty of traffic on there, commercial vehicles as well as people going to work. But as we're descending towards the road, I looked, and sure enough, there's a gap in the traffic.
The traffic light on the south side of Dieball had just cycled and there was a half a mile gap in traffic.
I can't make it go any farther. I can't turn a little bit left and right. That's gonna be about it. I don't have a lot of options here. We're lined up directly over a road that has a half-mile gap of the traffic, and at the rate we're coming down, we're just gonna clear the car in the front car of the traffic and land in an open place. I trimmed the airplane up, got a good forward speed on it, and it's just we got the road, I put the gear down.
And that's 2 or 3 seconds, he had the presence of mind to pull the nose up and basically feather the plane. You get one chance to do that.
And as we got close to the road, I raised the nose and began to arrest our descent rate, and we hit.
We hit so hard the landing gear just completely disintegrated. We bounced up some 30 to 40 feet in the air and then kind of sailed off over into the median. We were full of fuel, and if we'd have stayed on the pavement, we'd be a ball of flames.
Which was perfect. I mean, it couldn't have been any better. There were no trees in this part of the median. There was no bridge abutments. There were no center light poles. And it's only in this part of the median that it's that open. And we slid into this wet grass and slid to a stop with our left wingtip 2 inches from the yellow paint strip that divides the northbound traffic.
When we hit, it was the most violent thing I've ever been in. My torso went forward, and my chest hit my knee, and my chin hit my shin underneath, and I actually bit my tongue within a 1/16 of an inch of biting my tongue clear off. Ended up breaking my back in 2 spots, and got 9 herniated discs and a torn rotator cuff.
My T12 vertebrae basically collapsed and crushed. When it crushed, it broke into about 7 or 8 pieces. One of the pieces pushed backwards towards the spinal column. And they were concerned about this at the hospital because they could see that piece that was jutted into the spinal cord, and they said, good golly, you know, that's a chance for paralysis. And they did all kinds of tests assuming I already had paralysis, and I didn't. And it turns out that my spinal column is genetically large enough that thing could push in there, and it didn't affect anything.
Danny, very tall guy, he wasn't going to sit down. He was making phone calls, and Ed and I were laying over in the middle of Highway 59 northbound.
We'd taken off in the dark, we're dead in the rainstorm. You know, if the engine had failed at takeoff and we're 50 yards off the ground where we didn't have time, we're dead. If we'd have come out anywhere besides within gliding distance of 59, we're dead. Land on 59 and not hit an 18-wheeler. The plane not blowing up when it hits the concrete, not sliding into incoming traffic and stopping 10 feet from a head-on. And there's no reason for us to be here other than God wanting us to stay on this earth and do His work.
It began to dawn on us, we had survived a plane crash in the most improbable conditions we could ever see. It's a miracle that we're alive.
My understanding is since FAA has been investigating these type of misfueling accidents, there's in the past 26 or 27 years, the amount of survivors, 3. Danny, Ed, and myself.
I think at this moment, if you asked me to say, tell the story and leave God out of it, I couldn't do it, and I wouldn't do it. This story is really about God intervening into an incredible situation that statistically you can prove these 3 guys should have never lived through this. And I think the lesson for me that day is that for all of us in our lives, no matter what we're doing, the training has to be there for it to kick in before the crisis occurs. And so the moment that second engine quit, there wasn't even a question of what I should do. And it was instinctive, and it never even dawned on me to try to, I didn't want to crash or hold the stick back or whatever. The training kicked in. You've got to be prepared not to pull back and hold too close to you. You've got to let go and let God a little bit.
Six years ago, we lost our son very suddenly in a skiing accident. He had 3 small children and a beautiful wife and a life full of love for the Lord. And in a blink, life changes. And God has been so present and so real and so faithful throughout our life's journey. And it's been a privilege to walk that road. God trusts us with situations so that our testimony might be real to those around us.
We've done life together. You know, I lost my wife at 38 years, 16 years of cancer, 31 surgeries. He was by my side. You know, he lost a 31-year-old son, and I was with him, just he and I, when he closed the casket. So we've done life.
My wife and I were 7 months pregnant with our third child and found out I had cancer. So I've survived cancer. Got pulled out in a riptide and didn't think I'd ever see the hard land again. Survived this plane crash with Edd and Danny. Best friends. I can trust them. They're faithful men. I value their friendship more than ever. Through thick and thin, I know they'd walk through fire for myself, my family, my wife, my kids. They would do that just as I would do for them.
We've had trials, and we've had the opportunity to live our faith in a very real way. And the thing that I know for sure is God is real, and He is so good. He's so faithful. He supplies our needs. He gives us a testimony so that others might come to know Him.
Good to be together with you guys again.
Absolutely.
Even in Lufkin.
No place we'd rather be at.
Actually, by the radar returns, we were right over this highway about a mile or two up here.
I'll show you the traffic light that created the gap. Right
It's
up
my
here.
favorite traffic light in the state of Texas.
We hit the ground about another eighth of a mile up here past this bridge.
Well, look at this. There's the last overhead wires right there.
Right
I mean,
there.
it's the only place we could have come down and not had. Oh my. Okay, this is looking. Is this it? Because
This is it.
this is looking pretty familiar.
We hit right in here.
Oh. And there's the median. Look at that. The only part of the median without anything in it. Are you believing that?
We just stopped, and I had no control over the airplane. With the wheels sheared off, with the gear gone, we were just passengers on this thing sliding like a sled right through the grass and had no control over it. And when we stopped, I thought for a moment, just a slight moment, I thought, golly, we're alive.
Absolutely, no doubt, it is a miracle. So many things were stacked against us, and God had His hands on the yoke of that plane with Edd.
When you look at all the different scenarios and the 5 or 6 times that we should have been dead, it's unquestioned that God's hand was all over this from the beginning.
It hit me what a miracle it is. I'm so grateful for it.
To come to the realization that you're alive when the circumstances, statistically, provably, the outcome should have been much different. I shouldn't be here. It's humbling for a moment to realize that there's been a miraculous outcome, that God has reached His hand into my life and not only protected us, but taken us out of a scenario that we should have all been killed in.
But when you come back and stand in this place and you see how unique this place was for the plane to come to rest here, with the only place we could have survived, is how can you not say anything other than not just thankful, but I'm immensely, eternally thankful to God for what He's done for us and for our families and for my precious friends.
Never, ever pass up the opportunity to tell your family and your friends. Don't ever pass up that opportunity to tell them you love them. And I love you guys.